Yeah. You're listening to Autodesk's Digital Builder Podcast, a show that inspires construction professionals to innovate and use technology to improve how they build our world. I'm Eric Thomas, and I've been working in construction for nearly a decade. And now I have the privilege to sit down with industry trailblazers to hear how they're solving construction's biggest challenges and redefining the future of the built environment.
All right. Welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, I am here on day 3 of Autodesk University. I have 3 lovely people to my right to talk all about the role of veterans in the construction industry, their transition from working or being in the military to civilian life, how we can empower employers and veterans alike to have more success in the construction industry and everything else that goes into that. And to help me tell that story, to my immediate right is Ron McGuire, the Senior Program Administrator for the International Training Institute, or the ITI. We've got Sarah Velez, the Senior Technical Program Manager and Global Co-Lead of Autodesk Veterans Employees Resource Group. That's a mouthful. And Anthony Williams, the OSM Project Coordinator for Dynamic Systems, Inc. How are y'all doing today? Feeling good?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. I haven't started the interrogation yet, so we're still in good spirits. We're feeling all right. I have a question that I didn't tell any of you that I was going to ask you. So I see the eyes widening. Everybody goes, what's happening next? But it's a fun one. I'm putting together a digital builder playlist, and I'm really interested to hear, what is one top song or artist that's really on your playlist right now that you just can't get enough of? Anthony, I'm going to go all the way down the line. Anything particular that you're jamming on right now?
Personally, Poor Man's Poison.
Poor Man's Poison. What genre is that? I'm not familiar.
Kind of dark folk.
All right. I'm going to add that to the playlist. Sarah, what do you got?
I love Vance Joy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Nope.
Missing Piece. He's kind of like a folk typey, artist. So that's what's been on my playlist.
All right. We're on the folk train. Ron, where are you sitting right now in the music spectrum?
Yeah, probably a little Morgan Wallen.
All right. I don't know any of these 3 artists, if I'm going to be honest.
You don't know Morgan Wallen?
I'm embarrassing myself, but that's okay. Morgan Wallen, folk or no?
Country.
Country. Okay. That would be why it's outside of my sphere. I apologize. Not a huge country aficionado, to say the least. But let's stop talking about music and other nonsense, because that's not why you agreed to join me today. We're here to talk about veterans in the construction industry. And to start this off, I want to hear from Anthony and Sarah and learn a bit more about your personal experiences transitioning from the military into civilian life, especially when you're considering your career moves after getting out of the military. Sarah, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Yeah, sure. So it's like a weird coincidence that I was an officer and Anthony was enlisted, but we had the same type of job. And actually, it's like a very, not a common job in the military. I was a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear weapons officer.
So another mouthful
yeah,
title
well,
here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Whenever I get so mad trying to explain it, because I'm like, why did you not think of a better name than that? And I'm sure he's in the same boat where we're like, who thought of this name? So even translating that after you have the mouthful is pretty difficult, because, our jobs are primarily him training soldiers and me providing input to commands on if an enemy were to use chemical weapons. What does that look like? What are they? How does it affect people? And, there's not a lot of chemical weapons, thank God, hopefully, rolling around.
I'll mirror that sentiment. Thank you.
In the civilian world, that was my job. And coming out of the military was a little difficult, because I think we've all had the question of, oh my gosh, what do I do? Right.
Well, and how do you apply that to something that's not that,
And I was lucky, because I had a bachelor's degree and then I went to night school in the military, and they have a partnership with universities where you can go to night school, and I got my master's degree. So I was set up with at least having some sort of education path where I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to start searching. But I just started applying for jobs and looking through different companies that help veterans transition and get them employment. And I got a job offer from a company that did fab construction, through Intel. And in no way, I met the requirements, right? But I certainly was not the A++ star as far as the person that was most qualified as the project manager for this type of construction. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. So I applied, and they took a chance on me. And I know for certain they had people who had degrees in that and had prior experience. And when I got hired and I asked my manager, his name is Aaron, who's just a really nice guy. And I was like, well, why me? Like, I barely made it, I think, in my opinion. And he's like, veterans, you guys have your stuff together. I know what I'm getting when I hire a veteran. And that's somebody that shows up, they've got their stuff together. And these specific types of equipment, when you're building them, cost, $150 million a piece. So there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of sometimes yelling. And he just kind of knew that a veteran could kind of handle that.
It makes sense. And it's such an interesting translation that you got that opportunity. But you made a point in the middle of what you were sharing on you didn't have 100% of the qualifications for that particular role. And I always like to help people think about this when they're applying for anything, regardless of what your background is. There's rarely somebody who is 100%. And so don't disqualify yourself when you're applying. Make the person who put that job posting out disqualify you. If you have 60 or 70 and you're interested in it, apply. And then, if they say no, they say no. But if you didn't apply, you don't get the opportunity at all. So that's a really interesting, but I think thoughtful portion of your transition. So Anthony, I'd like to hear a bit more about how that shaped up for you in contrast to Sarah's experience.
When I was getting out, I did the Warriors to Welders program. So I spent 7 or 8 weeks, 40 hours a week welding every day. And then I was able to bring that home to Houston and join the local union where they took a year off my apprenticeship and put me to work right away, right in front of the line, everything. When I was getting out, I had no idea what I was going to do. So they had several programs for transitioning to civilian life. And I just picked one and went with it. And now, after 4 years of being an apprenticeship on the job, working every day, I got an opportunity to become a detailer. And when I did that, I just stuck with it. And every day came to work, learned the programs, spent the time doing it. I just learned everything as I go.
I think a lot of us are in that seat as far as we'll show up and figure it out. But it's really cool to hear the program existed to help you navigate that. And I know I've got some questions for Ron in a little bit because his organization has some very similar and adjacent programs that are along that vein. But I also want to talk a little bit more about adapting our skills to the civilian world. And, how can veterans successfully translate those skills and experiences into language that folks understand who might not, understand chemical and bio weapons and, all these different things. I'd like to hear a bit more about that. Like, how did you talk about it in a way that made somebody go, oh, I understand that this is actually relevant, even if the one-to-one transition isn't there. And Sarah, I'd love it if you could take that one a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's, there's so much, especially at the level that I was working in the military. Everybody has different kind of levels they're working at, but it's basically project management, right? Everything in the military operational wise has a start and an end, hopefully, right? Like that's a hopefully. But when you're starting any sort of operation, whether that's moving into country or you're deploying, right? There's a start, there's the preparation, which every project has that, the planning, the training, right? And then, the deployment itself. So looking at that and looking at what I had done as far as just the start to end of anything, that's project management. And I went and got my PMP, right? Yep. Like that adds to the flavor of people knowing that I know how to do that. Briefing skills, right? I, how to brief the 4-star general of SOCOM in Afghanistan, right? Like, that briefing skills translates to me talking to my boss or me going in front of a vice president of product and telling her, exactly what she needs and the information that's important. So for me, that was kind of the journey. I was actually just talking to Anthony about one thing all service members get when they leave the military is called a JST, a Joint Services Transcript. So they take all the schools you went to, if you were like a mechanic, right? And they're like, hey, community college, or hey, welding school that you're going to go into. Here's all the military schools or experiences person have. But this, what is it? It's what it means in real life, right? So this is, the mechanics 101 or, math 101. And people get college credit for it, actually. So it's a pretty cool thing to help translate those skills.
I'm glad to hear that these programs at least are intentional. And I'm hopeful more folks can start learning that these opportunities are here. Anthony, I'd be interested to hear a bit more about your transition there as far as just talking about your skills. I think the project management aspect, Sarah, kind of hit it out of the park. What an interesting shift from, briefing a general or somebody in a very stressful and very high intensity environment. And now you're just, briefing your boss? Like, oh, yeah, no, that seems like the stress levels are not not even in line at that point when you get back into the civilian world.
Absolutely not. Now, translating my job to what I'm doing now, teaching is probably the main focus of our job. It was teaching all the Marines and helping them build the confidence in their gear. When we get back here, it's talking to everybody the way they need to be talked to. Some people are very chill, can relax. It's being able to adapt to those people and maybe getting the information across in a specific way for them to understand. Nowadays, it's pretty relaxed. I mean,
I can imagine.
Going job to job and talking to engineers even, I was very surprised when I got onto certain projects where we were actually speaking directly to the engineers, and they were super relaxed. Very chill. They answered an email, which really surprised me because the original projects that I was on, we would never talk to them. So it's different nowadays.
It makes sense, but it all translates, and it's just a matter of how you frame it. And I think employers have a bit of due diligence to consider it from their perspective as well, where you might not have this beautiful transcript of here's my college project management degree or whatever, but like talk to any veteran and, they've dealt with the BS. They know how to keep things moving forward and in an incredibly high stress environment. And so regardless of the stress levels at a company, I don't even think they're even the same stratosphere. And I love the cool, calm, and collected, approach that y'all can bring to the conversation. It's a huge value add, and I think more people need to pay attention to it. So, Ron, I got a question for you now. Your organization has programs very similar to the welding program that Anthony was talking about. Can you give me an overview of what you offer to veterans and how that applies to getting them from the military into great opportunities in the civilian world?
We have a program called Smart Heroes, and that program was started in 2017. There is two locations. One's in DuPont, Washington, right outside of a base there. And then the other location that was started in 2019 is in Colorado Springs. So basically before they leave the military, they can apply to come into this program, go to both of those training centers, and for 7 weeks, go there Tuesday through Friday. It ends up being 224 hours. And essentially what they get is they get a taste of the trade, lots of different things that we train them during those 7 weeks. But when they get discharged from the military, if they still want to continue on with the sheet metal trade, they can go back to their home and they basically have a year of their apprenticeship completed training-wise. So it's a really good program. It's been very successful. We have over 500 graduates since the inception of the program.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Obviously it's a great opportunity for the veterans, soldiers to look into this and see if, hey, is this, the trades are not for everybody, but, we have really good retention rate. DuPont has about a 68% retention rate, and down in Colorado Springs, it's about 50% retention rate. It's a good opportunity for them. And we look at the military and these veterans that come out of there. One of the biggest things is they have structure. Sarah mentioned something about, having some structure and, some soft skills, and they have that. My dad was a Marine, so I know all about soft skills. I'm not a veteran, but, there was structure, and we look at those, the veterans that they have that. They know, hey, you got to be at the job at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., what it is. It's not you strolling in at 7:30 or whatever. So those soft skills are important, and those are the individuals that we want to bring into the trade.
It's really cool that your organization, saw this as an opportunity. Went, okay, hey, there's this group of folks who have such an incredible breadth of skills that we can bring into the trades. And I'm grateful to hear about it, because I don't think everybody is aware that all these different types of programs are here for them to take advantage of. And Anthony, I'd be curious, how did you find out about the welding program in contrast to like what Ron's talking about right now?
I was talking with a few people who were getting out, and when I was in, at least, right towards the end, they take you and they put you through this program where you spend a whole week every day talking to civilians who had gotten out, and they teach you how to write a resume. They show you different opportunities that you can take, and one day it was just going through all the different programs that they had set up already. So like helmets to hard hats, troops to truckers, warriors to welders. There was several more than that. But I saw that and I was like, okay, I think I could probably do that.
I love that. And Ron, I'm curious to hear, you know, how are you actually making folks more aware of the programs as well? Is there a big, initiative with the two bases that you've got facilities by? How does that common or that communication go?
Yeah, there's definitely, obviously, with the two bases that we're participating with now. There's definitely conversations with the base commanders and anybody that's, like I said, they go through an interview process. So we try to get you don't have to be on that base or on either of those bases to take advantage of the program. If you're leaving the military from another part of the another base in the country and you find out about this program through, I think, the CSPs.
Yeah,
right?
And then SkillBridge too is another one that we were talking about.
Okay, so if you can find out about that program through SkillBridge, your CSPs that are there, you have an opportunity to go there. They'll obviously they'll put you up at the base, go through that 7 weeks. 7 weeks isn't a long time.
Yeah.
You really think about it. So I know up in DuPont, they've had to really. So DuPont's kind of unique because that part of the country, a lot of people want to stay there when they're getting discharged from the military, right? So they've actually had to, really when they're doing the interviewing is, okay, are you going to leave the DuPont area? Because they're obviously getting a lot of apprentices that, complete the program and then they want to stay there. So they actually started looking, okay, hey, are you going to go back? Maybe you're going to Minnesota. Maybe you're going somewhere else in the country because that's people that we wanted to train. You're getting direct entry into the apprenticeship program, right? But there's requirements that when you have an apprenticeship program that it's an opportunity for, lots of people.
And you're really building up the community at that point as well, where you're bringing these skills and these training, and folks, if they're excited about the area, that's cool that they're inclined to stay too. I mean, I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, so I'm very familiar with how beautiful that part of the Midwest is, and I'm tired of snow, which is why I don't live there anymore, to be completely honest. But it was such a beautiful thing, and it's just really cool to hear, the hard work that your organization is doing to help and bring all these folks into the trades. So that's awesome, Ron. Thank you for giving the high level there. Sarah, Anthony, I got another question for both of you. What specific guidance would you offer other veterans who are out there listening potentially to help them make that translation of their skills? Like what would you tell a younger you today that you've learned in the past, 5-10 years or whatever, that you wish you'd known when you were bringing these skills or, making that transition? Anything that you'd share?
I think finding a mentor is really important.
Yes.
When you get out, you're so used to the structure of the military. You wake up at 4, you do PT, you shower, your life is extremely structured. I have to ask permission to go on vacation, right? And then I have to tell them where I'm going, and then they can call me back at any time. It's fun. It's great. But finding another veteran mentor and finding somebody who has a similar circumstance of you who can help guide you through those paths, finding other Marines, because you'll have this sense of loss after. And that sense of loss and the sense of confusion of like, what do I even do? You don't have to know what you want to do the second you get out of the military. It's okay to take a little skip year here if you have the ability to. But finding that mentor who can say, I'm going to help you navigate the civilian world and I got your back and I speak the lingo and I got you, you're my brother, you're my sister, I think is really important.
Absolutely. Finding somebody to even just have a conversation with and joke about old times, different things that happened while you were in, and it's nice to have somebody there that you can relate to.
We were saying we didn't know how to talk to like normal people. That was a thing for us.
Oh,
we were
yes.
worried about like, okay, no profanity whatsover, so
Maybe a little profanity.
Maybe a little bit.
Just a little.
But, we're questioning like, how do I even operate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so different. I mean, I worked for a federal contractor for a number of years, and I lived in Dubai, and my first site walk was in Afghanistan of all places. And most of the folks that I was working with at that time were ex-military or had been working adjacent to the military for decades at that point. And the focus that those folks brought to the projects that we were working on was always so interesting. Also, the stories that they had to share about what what they'd been up to in prior iterations of their life was always interesting. But it was always so clear that when stuff was really going and things were hitting the fan, like I might be stressed out, and then I'd look to my project executive or leader, whoever I was working on with those proposals and contract modifications, and just cool, calm, and collected because you go, even though we're, staying on top of the Ministry of Defense building right now, like everything's fine. I'm like, okay, and in that reassurance that I was able to get, especially somebody who was so junior in my career at that time where everything felt like a crisis because I hadn't developed the confidence to navigate these and everything was a new situation. I was so grateful for the mentorship and the leadership and also maybe a little bit of the profanity and the bad jokes and, all the other fun stuff. We had a lot of fun and I'm thankful for that. And so, anybody out there listening who, is an employer and has the opportunity to, potentially create a program or really intentionally lean into bringing veterans into your organization, it makes sense. And I think you should take a closer look, especially right now, the construction industry is struggling to fill seats. And so what better place than to find people who are going to confidently deliver on your projects than folks who have been in the military or coming out of the military? There's a lot to be said there.
There's a veteran for every industry. Let me just say that.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear all of your thoughts actually on this. What can employers do better on that point? So I'm kind of teeing up they can do better and they should do better. Sarah, is there anything that comes to mind when, you were applying for jobs that might have made it feel a little bit easier from the perspective of a veteran?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I think, it's on me to translate my skills, but it's also on employers to try to understand them, right? So educating yourself around veterans and their struggles and coming out and transitioning, but also the fact that, you could learn a little bit about veterans and what the different jobs are and the branches and just try to get some baseline understanding. I've had a lot of blank stares in interviews, even, trying to translate my skills as best as I could and people going like, well, what does that mean? And I don't really think it was that difficult. Maybe there was just that communication gap. But I think not only just, making that effort, but also committing to it, right? Saying I'm going to take a chance and hire a veteran and see how it works out for me, even if it's something that's completely foreign to me in my business.
I love that. Anthony, anything to add to that?
No, she hit it right on the head. Honestly,
it's all good.
It really is like that. It's just give them a chance. They may not have the technical skills that you require, but every one of them can adapt, and that's a lot of what they learned in the military is the soft skills to adapt and overcome every situation that you come across.
It makes sense. You're going to find somebody who's going to get the job done and figure out how to get the job done, even if they didn't walk, up to the table and having that baseline skill set already. I appreciate that perspective. Ron, anything from your seat? I know you're coming from a little bit of a different background, but I'd be curious to hear if you have anything to add.
Well, I think coming from the training side of it is to provide these veterans with the tools that they need to be successful. They'll get the opportunities. Our contractors will give them the opportunities, and that's what it's about. We provide the tools for them to, the training so they get those tools, whatever it may be, we do a lot of different things as sheet metal workers, and they can get a wide variety of training. Obviously, detailing is whether it's using Revit, AutoCAD, fabrication, whatever it may be. If we provide the training them for the tools that they need to work at our contractors, they'll get opportunities.
I'm also kind of interested to hear a bit more about this from the perspective of leadership. And so I think folks in the military are very, very familiar with the concept of teamwork and leading people depending on their role. And I'd like to hear a bit more about how that's translated for both Anthony and Sarah, as if both of you have, taken new jobs outside of the military. So Anthony, I'm curious to hear your take, just teamwork and leadership as a kind of a concept you're translating to the civilian world. How's that shaped up in your career?
I would say leadership is probably the easiest one for us.
I'm not surprised. And I mean that in a complimentary way. I mean, that tracks, absolutely.
From my perspective, I was a Marine, so I don't know how it works with the Army or anything, but once you hit a corporal, it's young NCO and that type of thing, you get in charge of like 2, 3, 4 people, and you have to get them to do what they need to do. Being able to communicate with them is a big thing, especially during leadership. The teamwork, Marines, for me, we can work with anybody to a point.
Fair.
A lot of things just roll off of veterans' shoulders. You can talk to people as long as you're not completely disrespecting them to an absolute horrible point. It's uh, they can handle just about anything for most part. So teamwork for the military people is just being able to let everything roll off your shoulders and get back to work.
Yeah. It's like the baseline of everything you're doing,
Mhm.
for lack of a better descriptor. Sarah, anything to add to that?
Yeah, the Army's a little different. The Marines are, you guys are next level. I appreciate it. But when they're like pulling stitches out of their uniforms so it looks perfect, I'm like, okay, guys. But from my perspective with the teamwork, you don't do anything alone in the military. You don't get a truck down the road. You don't get a company out the door. You don't do anything by yourself. And I think that's where you get that sense of camaraderie from. It's so interesting sometimes in the civilian world when you find out somebody's doing something for like their own self, like they're helping somebody for themselves. And I'm like, wait, what? You're just helping somebody to help them. And nope, you always find out there's that one person somewhere. So I just think it comes naturally. And as far as leadership, I've always struggled to translate. Like I always want to be a leader, and I've always had, I want to say no problem being a leader, but I always am happy to step up and be the loud person in the room because, that's what we do.
Oh, yeah.
I've got microphones, so I'm loud all the time.
We're loud. But, when I tell people I was a captain, they're like, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but you're so young. And I'm like, because people in the military are usually a little bit younger, So I think it's always kind of a shock when people find out I was in charge of like 180 people at one point. And I'm still like struggling to like translate that into the civilian world. I actually just had a one-on-one with a skip level of my boss's boss, and he's like, oh, you're a captain. Like literally like an hour before this. And I was like, yeah, but he's like, oh, that's great. That's so cool. So I think even, and not even at the officer level, but even at like the corporal NCO level, and what Anthony did, the amount and breadth of what he was in charge of is not really seen at the, you were probably how old were you?
Oh, when I joined, 18.
Yeah. And how old were you left?
See, I turned 21 in Iraq. So
fun birthday party, right?
Oh yeah.
Sand cake.
Yeah. Terrible. See, that was
you were young. You were in your
23.
Yeah, you were early 20s. To be in charge of that at 23?
21, 22.
Yeah.
Even then.
Did you have, you had guys under you, right? Like you had.
I had, at the most I had 3. Well, yeah, 3.
Still 3. Like in the civilian world, it's like, oh, only 3 people. It's like, that's still a manager.
If
you're
you give
23.
me 3 people at 22 or 23 to manage, everybody would have had a bad time.
No, that's what I'm saying. So like, I think you probably still had the struggle of being 23 and we're still baby faced and going like, yeah, well, I've been in charge of stuff and I had some responsibility, and they're like, yeah, whatever. So it's still a struggle. And I think that's why we're on the stage right now talking about this, because it's still a gap in what we're trying to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like at that point, my chief warrant officer had left our unit and left me in charge as a newly promoted corporal. And I had to report to a staff sergeant every day and let him know everything that we were doing every day. And then I had to make sure that everything was getting done completely. Just what my chief warrant officer should have been doing that wasn't there anymore.
Well, and you were 100% accountable. Like if somebody lost a pen, basically.
Oh,
if somebody lost a pen, his life was like hell. I got to be honest with you. So don't lose the pen.
The expectations are so different too. Mm-hmm. Like I can just see why so many of you are just okay. Yeah, no, I'm on. You give me 10 direct reports. That's fine. No big deal. I got that under control. It's something that folks should really take note of, though, because the level of responsibility was so significant, and that translates to so many different roles, regardless of how many people report to you or what you're trying to get done. It's going to get done. So that leads into another question I got for y'all, and it's tied to diversity in the military. And I think it goes without saying that folks serving in the military come from all walks of life. How does this diverse experience translate into the civilian world when you are, working with different groups of people? And Anthony, I think you were getting to this a little bit, so I'm going to send this one to Sarah first. I'd like to hear your thoughts just on the value, diversity, and the experience coming from the military and applying that into the, the civilian life.
It makes me go, why would people think that it's not valuable, right?
Yeah.
When the military is by far the most diverse organization. I used to have soldiers bring in like frying pans when we go training in the field, and they'd make like lumpia. I was like, I'm not eating Army food. I'm eating lumpia tonight.
Yeah.
So, it's just everybody speaking so many different languages and from so many different places, not just in the United States, but worldwide. So it always is kind of a shock to me. And being part of the Veterans ERG here at Autodesk, and we do place such value on having a diverse workforce because it creates diversity of thought, right? When everybody looks the same, when everybody thinks the same, you're not dynamic. You're not innovative.
That's when you have a big miss too. Everybody looking and thinking about something in the same way, in the same problem. You might have a huge gap. And since everybody has that same experience leading up to that point, you might not see it. And then say for like a software company, you bring something to market with that. And now everybody goes, well, why on earth did you do this? Because there's this giant group of people who have not been considered in this. And so that diversity of perspective is tremendous.
And there's a reason user experience researchers here at Autodesk, they survey everybody, right? Like they don't leave anybody out because they want to make sure they have every thought in there. So especially being in the military as we were integrating women into combat arms, that was an interesting experience and it was welcomed. And, my chains of command always wanted to know my perspective because, I didn't look like the person next to me, which was really nice.
I appreciate that. Ron, I'm sure that the diversity part of the conversation plays a big factor in why you've, tapped the military for, this training program as well. Do you have any thoughts on how that's influenced or successfully impacted the folks coming out of your training programs?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a committee. It's called Be for All. All right. So because, if you can do the job, we don't care, like you said, what walk of life, whatever it is. So that committee is SMART, which is the union side or labor side, SMACNA, which is our contractors, and then ITI. Obviously, we do training. We do diversity training. So it's extremely important to our organization. And, obviously, when we're bringing veterans in, they come from all walks of life, right? It doesn't matter as long as you can do the job. And I think all the trade unions are about the same. They all have some similar programs that are looking at DEI, very, very closely.
I love that. And Anthony, I know you were touching on this earlier. Any more thoughts on the diversity part of the bigger conversation as far as what vets bring to the table?
Diversity. I had a sergeant major one time sit down with our whole company, and he says, "What do you look for when you're looking for a gunner? Can he shoot the gun?" He was giving us all opportunities to answer this.
Yeah.
Can he clear it in case of it just locks up? And everyone is like, can he pay attention? Can he do this? Can he do that? And he said, did any one of you ask what color they were? Did any of you say, is that a woman? The Marine Corps, specifically the Marine Corps, does not care. As long as you can do the job and get it done and pay attention. That's a big thing in the Marine Corps.
That's a big part of it too. But it was such a thoughtful way to make that very clear for everybody, because you're all thinking about that question in the way of how do we get this job done? How do we navigate this situation? And then he comes in and swoops in with oh, by the way, hey, you weren't even thinking about this, without making it a controversial way of bringing that up too. That's a really cool example. I'm going to have to figure out how to iterate that in my own life. Obviously, I'm not talking about firearms at work or anything like that. But it is a really astute example of just the value of diversity, the diversity of the military, and how that can really positively impact the way that you're getting work done, regardless of what that project is. So I have one final question for all three of you. I'm so grateful for sharing all of your experience here as far as, transitioning from the military into civilian life. Ron, your take on the training portion of everything. I think we shared a lot of good concepts, but my last question for all of you is, what is one tool that you use on every project, no matter what you're working on? Ron, you've been asked this before, so I'm going to put you on the hot seat first. I'm going to have to go back and see if you answer it the same.
I think it's the tool. I mean, change and technology is really evolving so fast these days. So you've got to be open to change. If you're not open to change, and change is the technology. I mean, the construction industry is evolving like everything else.
Yeah, and construction companies are change management companies.
Yeah, yep. And if you're not open to that and you're not willing to accept change, you're going to be left behind. So you've got to be open to that, and it can be a number of different things. I mean, you sat in an open session, on Tuesday, and they talk about what AI is going to do for the industry. It's going to change. Next 5 years, the detailing environment's going to be probably a lot different than it is today.
Absolutely.
It's going to change, and you got to be open to that. And them are tools that we've got to train, and we've got to have our membership, willing to adopt that.
I love that answer. And it's so true, even outside of the construction industry. Like, folks need to be ready to adopt change. And all the tools and technology you're talking about right now, they're not here to, they're not taking jobs away or anything else. It's just the way we work is going to continue to iterate. And that's a really great point. I love that answer, Ron. I'm going to have to go back and see if that was how you answered the question a couple of years ago in New Orleans. So Anthony, I'm going to throw you next. What's one tool you can't live without when you're working on any project?
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper. That's a good one too. Yeah.
Just going into a meeting and being able to write down key points of things that you're hearing in the meeting is always helped me out. Of course, now we have those AI recorders and stuff inside the meetings that can give you a full transcript. And
oh yeah, I do that now. It saves my life, especially like as somebody with ADHD. Taking notes and leading a meeting is really difficult.
Because you're off here some days.
And so the recording and the transcripts have become an incredible tool. And
absolutely.
I can use AI sometimes to help kind of synthesize some of that. It hallucinates now and then, and I have to make sure I'm paying attention. But Anthony, the core of the paper and pencil, I think it's a great answer. I mean, we are digital builders, so maybe we're dancing.
It's always just like even with like an animator or somebody, they start off sometimes they just start off drawing.
Every single to-do list I make that's not a work to-do list, to-do list is written on paper. It just, for me, it feels better to have everything documented down.
It may be because we come from an older generation where we did have
whoa.
I don't want to say, okay, you're young, don't worry. But like me growing up, I didn't have a computer. Like we had computers in school, but it was like you played Oregon Trail or something.
You're not that old. Oh my.
Hey, you'd be surprised. But just having that feel of pen and paper and saying, okay, I got this right here. I have sticky notes on my desk all over my screens actually. But being able to write something down just to be able to remember it later on has always been a big thing for me.
I love it. All right, Sarah, you're up next. What's your tool?
God, I'm gonna sound really. Does it have to be a hard tool or can it be like a thing? I don't know. All right. Because I do like the pen and paper idea because we used to get yelled at. Remember if you forgot pen and paper? Lieutenant, you come here without pen and paper? Get out of my office. I don't want to see your face for another 24 hours. You're like, okay.
I don't think I've ever had a conversation with my boss like that.
Oh, yeah, that's not even, be gone. No, I think for me, this doesn't sound really cheesy because it's kind of just like a soft skill thing. I always, any program, any project, because I've managed a lot of them, is inclusivity. It's back to the diversity thing. I think I would hope that anybody who's listening to this knows that when you come on my team and you're on my program or project, like you're welcome. You're in the family, right? I got your back. I'm going to vouch for you. I'm going to work hard for you and we're going to work hard for each other. Like, I'm a mama. Mama's got you. So, when I'm starting these projects, I just try to always let people know that if you're on my team, you are always welcome here. And we're one Autodesk, right? And we're going to get it done together. If I had to think of a hard tool, I would say Autodesk ChatGPT is pretty freaking amazing.
I use that pretty regularly myself.
Got to write a lot of executive summaries. Shout out to my team, and that is very helpful.
Well, I love all of these tools here. This is probably one of my favorite parts of each episode. Thank you all so much for joining me and helping us, just uncover the importance of this conversation and shedding some personal perspective from, 3 different, very interesting but relevant directions. So without any further ado, just remember, you are listening to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter at builder_digital. Digital Builder is also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And until next time, goodbye.